Aloha. Alrighty, well, I'm sad to see you guys leave, but eventually I'm gonna be here. If you want to come back, that's amazing. If nothing else, we have the comment section on our YouTube videos, and text me if you ever need to talk. Long story short, music is awesome. I'd love to be there for you for Journey, no matter what. We have our. I'm going to go through the lesson plan from start to finish, using everything on our syllabus the way that I would normally do my 5 minutes in the morning and the 5 minutes at night if I took the instruction the way that I gave it. So here it is. What that did was it took all my spider exercises and worked through the 1st through 4th fret, the 5th through the 8th fret, and then the 9th through the 12th fret, thusly giving you all 12 of your minor second movements, which correlate to a whole half-tone diatonic chromatic movement. For a full octave scale. After I do my spider exercises, I tend to go to the chords that I'm having trouble with. So let's say for today we're just going to be playing a C minor. I will play my rhythm of that. My C minor in 1, I would do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Once I get out of the 16th notes, I would go to the major, just so I know the difference between the C minor, and the C minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Those 16 notes are tricky at the end there, but the slower you go with those whole notes, the easier it is to play those 16ths. You will notice after a period of time, the faster that you gradually increase that that first whole note from maybe like a 50 beats per minute to like a 70 beats per minute, the difference is astounding how fast you can go at that point. That's what I do with all my chords. Here is another chord review. D major, D minor, E major, E minor, F major, F minor, G major, G minor, G major, G minor, A major, A minor, B major, B minor, C major, C minor. You could also do every single one of these in the secondary fingering positions. D major, D minor, major, E minor, F major, F minor, G major, G minor, G major, G minor, A major, A minor, B major, B minor, C major, C minor again. When we work through these, you know that all of your triads will be your chords. If you ever have a question about what your triad chords are, just work it up in half steps. In the key of G major, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, back to G. What happens is you can find your triads for all of those to see how to influence the 1, 3, and 5 and how to actually spell them out in any key you're in depending on the circle fifths. That'll be a little later in this video. As far as our chord structure should be majors and minors, you can add a sus2 on a major and you could add a sus2 on a minor. You could add a sus4 on a major. You could add a sus4 on a minor. Sorry. But when you cover that third, it doesn't distinguish between major and minor. Some chords are different, some are not, which is why I teach this. G major and G major. G major 7, G major 7, G dominant 7, G dominant 7. If you can chuck and keep those from being legato and being staccato, you can cut off, they're much easier to control while doing strumming. Yeah? As far as our finger work, it all comes out of melodies, and all of our melodies come out of scales. So whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Write that on a piece of paper and see how when you go from a G to an A, it's a whole step, A to a B, it's a whole step, B to a C, it's a half step, C to a D, whole step, D to a E, whole step, E to F sharp, whole step, and then a half step resolution from F sharp to G. When you play each note, there's a scale associated with it. G major, Ionian. A minor, A Dorian. When we go to our third scale degree, after G, we've got our B, so it has a B Phrygian. As you notice, I'm still playing the C scale, but I'm omitting the first note, starting with the second note, or the third, and then adding that note. What happens is when you play from the G major scale, in this instrument, you will see that G Lydian is nothing more than a G major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, with a raised fourth. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. By knowing that your Lydian starts on the fourth scale degree, you can play your G, A, B, C, start on the C and go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and those notes will give you your Lydian movement or your Lydian mode. The next way to look at that is to write down all these on a piece of paper and correlate them to your key signatures. So in the key of D, knowing that we've got two sharps, D, F sharp and C sharp, the third scale degree and the seventh scale degree, you can tell that your C sharp diminish is going to resolve into your D by hearing that Ti-do, that half step movement, being able to move. So the next thing is to take your major triads and start seeing what your diminished triads are. And the only way I can explain that, the easiest way, is to take the fifth of any key and make it a seventh. So in the key of A, A, B, C sharp, C sharp, D, E major, F sharp, minor. Here's where my see how that last chord structure is fundamentally the same structure that I would have played in G. So F sharp diminished to G. When we move these chords around in the chordal structures, you'll notice that the sus2 and the sus4 are what you move on your triad to make it suspend above the note. And then our dominant and our diminished seventh is what we use to kind of move the music. In a clear example of G major, E minor, C major, F sharp diminished. This is the seventh tone. It could be considered a D major, D dominant seven, which leads back into it, but since I'm using it as the fourth chord right before I resolve, it's considered my lending tone. G, E, C, F sharp, G. If I chose not to use that movement of that note, and let's say I played a D sus 4, I could have hover above the note, but the resolution of that tone wants to go back to the third to make it a major, or it wants to jump up to the fifth to make it a perfect fit. What happens in music, and you'll see this, the chords we use are made out of the 1, 3, and the 5. When we suspend a chord, we add the second or a fourth. When we're moving a tone, we add the seventh tone on it. Well, what happens when we use a sixth note? Here's where the magic comes in. The sixth note, the Aeolian, the sixth note, is kind of reserved to have that major be able to be fluidly moving for any of those other keys. So in the key of G, my minors would have been A minor, B minor, A minor, B minor, and then what would you have? E minor. So I can quite literally use Aeolian on the E minor, the A minor, and the B minor. I could also use their corresponding modes, which I spoke of earlier. A minor would be Dorian, B minor would be Phrygian, and then E minor would be Aeolian. What happens in Aeolian, and I don't have time right now to go into the whole gamut of these, but there are other subsets of modes which fall underneath Aeolian, the sixth subset. So what happens is when you move or augment a note flat or sharp during that, it tends to change the total interval tonal movement. So correlation, the easiest way to say this, D major, would I make a D minor? If I flatten my D to right there, that augments a chord. So that's a D aug. It's an interesting chord because it only quite literally can be used in two different places. While using it with the lending chord, the seventh of a tone, and then you use different modal structures on that. So just like major is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, a Locrian or an augmented or diminished minor scale would sound something like, kind of has this half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, over and over again, which gives you a very distinct tone. So when I played that D aug, I could have, hear how that adds a level of suspense to it, and then it finally can resolve to the, just the same way that a diminished would resolve. It just has a different feel for it. If you need a great example, Frank Zappa, the Muffin Man, the beginning chord is an augment, I think it's an F augmented chord. Hey Donna, I think it's called, oh no, Hey Darlin' by the Beatles. Oh darling, it starts on an E augmented and then goes into A. So very distinct tone. So what we do is after you learn the chords, the triads, you add your susses, and then you see how to make your diminished. The idea is to play every single chord structure with a major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major, major, minor, minor, major, was it? Work yourself through the chords, they all correlate. You could either move the structures up as we talked about, or you could find them out on your fretboard, meaning D minor right here, or D minor down here, meaning G major, or G major, or, I'm sorry, D major, or D major. How about this? Being able to see your different chords. Like here, we've got a minor, right? Here's another minor structure. Here's a minor structure. It goes back to its major. So what you'll notice, because we have our first, our fourth, and our fifth, these structures are going to look the same. And then our second, our third, and our sixth are all going to look the same as well. Our seventh is that diminished that we've been talking about. Once you see the diminish in every chord, there's only 3 different diminished shapes. Once you see them, you can see them. There's only 2 different augmented shapes. You can either play it backwards, or you can play it forwards. Either way, these are gorgeous chords to put in the middle of things when you're trying to move melodies. I hope that works out for the different types of chords. The next thing is quite literally doing 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, going through all of your interval movements. Here's what I mean: G A B G A B A B C A B C B C D. You're going to want to work on these in 3s, then 4s. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, then 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. When you go through 6-note scales, 7-note scales, all of these, you start to notice certain variations. By practicing the practice of practice, you will notice that combining different open note scales, like, and then combining closed note scales, sometimes behooves you when you're using 5-note patterns. See how when I get to 1 2 3 4 5, my next step and option is to go to my A, B, C, D, E. Unfortunately, when I'm playing 5-note constructs, if I play my E up here with this finger, I'm quicker to the draw to get my next 5-note phrasings up the other way. So where you begin your finger positioning scale pattern happens to be the same scale patterns that you use when you're moving through all of your different modal structures. So if you have any questions, put it in the comment section below. Other than that, you're on the foundation right now to start taking music like, let's see, how about Tom Petty? D major, D sus4, D sus D, A. So in the key of D, you've got a D, D sus4, D. So D, E, F, G, A. This is a 1, 1 sus, 1, 1, 5 type of chord. If you're doing, let's see, reggae, and you had G minor. Knowing that you've got a minor, you could either go backwards to a major or forwards to another minor. Why? Because you generally have 2 minors lumped together in second and third, and you generally have a major right before that. So in the key of G minor, I could go back the other way to an A major. Or, sorry, B flat. No, that's not right, is it? E, no, F. F major, G minor, A minor. So what happens is when we use these do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, we should be able to listen to any tune that is on the radio at least and be able to say this is in the key of because this. So what you want to look for is your 2 minors being pushed together and then your 2 majors being pushed together. Your 2 majors being pushed together are your perfect 4th and your perfect 5th, and the 2 minors are going to be your minor 2nd and your minor 3rd. If you were to have an A minor and a B minor together, chances are you're in the key of G major. If you were to have a D minor and an E minor together, chances are you're in the key of C major. The reason why, no other variable tends to stick out. And what I said to you when we first met, everything's pretty much in the key of C. It holds firm. Because honestly, if you're playing in the key of C and you've got, those are all the keys in the key of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I start that same scale, it makes a minor mode, which means your relative 6 works for every chord. A minor is C majors, B minor is D, E minor is G, so on and so forth. So what I would suggest is going through your circle of fifths, drawing it every week. Draw it new, draw it creatively, draw it abstractly. Draw it to the point where you know definitively that your E major, when it's looking at its relative minor, is C sharp minor. You will then notice that when you play a C sharp minor and an E major, the notes that are contained within both structures correlate. There are only 1 or 2 variations through this whole process that doesn't work, and generally it's because we're not using our lending tone in the same rhythm purpose. Like most songs are in the key of 4, 2, 3, 4. Well, that 3 beat and that and of 3 to the 4 beat generally wants to be your moving tone, your lending tone, so it goes to another chord or another chord within that structure. Something I also didn't mention, which might make a little bit more sense now that you've got a little bit more musical comprehension, is all the notes within a major scale are considered natural notes. There are no augmentations of flattening or sharpening a note besides making a major third a minor third that does anything besides adding major or minor seconds together. What happens when we have these choral structures, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G are all the natural notes within G major. Whenever I alter any of those, it is no longer a natural note on the grand staff. So what we look for are the accidentals, sharps, flats, and naturals to correlate to what the key signature is and how to inadvertently move in and out of those. Looking forward to hearing the progress too with the trombone as well. Give me a buzz if you ever want to come back here. If you have any questions about music related stuff, I'll be here for you. It was nice meeting you, and I'm looking forward to our next adventure of music. Aloha.